but I don't know if it's the title of the talk, but it says on there, and also the back of this card, imagine a world without hate. So I think that's a good topic for the day, and Josh, I'm very sorry I have to go, but I will be watching on our website. I will see it. I promise.
Great. Thanks, Josh. Thank you. Where do you want me to stand?
Yes, please.
Oh, you're recording this? Okay. Okay. Great. So thank you very much for having me. It's really an honor to be here with you this morning in Wyckoff Rotary Club. This is actually my second Rotary Club meeting in New Jersey since becoming the regional director, and my third Rotary Club meeting ever. My wife, before we were married, when we were dating, we went to Janesville, Wisconsin to go visit her grandfather, who is a lifetime member of the Rotary Club, and 101 years old, still tries to get to the Rotary Club. Although when we went to his 100th birthday last year, I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "I haven't been in the Rotary in a while," and I'm a little bothered by that. So the first time I met him, he took us to the Rotary Club for lunch. It was a wonderful afternoon. I will say that Rotary Club in Janesville, Wisconsin. I don't know how many people have been to Janesville, Wisconsin. At the Rotary Club, you do get the crop report, which is really interesting.
Yeah.
So
That's good. Wow, right? Different world.
We did learn that that summer the corn is supposed to be knee high by the 4th of July, and it was. So that was good for everyone in town. So my name is Josh Cohen. I'm the regional director for the Anti-Defamation League. I thought we have a little bit of time, not a whole lot of time, but it would be helpful for me if we could just go around the room really quickly. Just tell me your name, what you do for a living, how long you've been in the Rotary Club, and take like 2 or 3 minutes. I'll start at the table.
Hi, I'm Andy Garlick. I'm an IT consultant, and I've been here about 17 years.
I'm Bobby Beverly, Sandy Bush, and I have been here
Russ Anthem, president this year. I've been in the club 4 years, and I have a financial service.
I'm Benita Herman, and I'm a prospective new member, and I've lived in Wyckoff for 50 years, and I have a business called itsourtimetotravel.com.
My name is John Adams. I'm a chemical consultant, and I've been here in Wyckoff for 11 years, and known the club about 7 or 8.
I'm from Midland Park. My name is Lloyd Borderstrass. I pastor a church in Midland Park, and I've been part of this club just over 2 years.
Good morning. Paul Vicente. I work for Columbia Bank, and I've been in Rotary roughly when Andy started about 17, 18 years ago.
Jim Haggerty, in the digital website and advertising business with car dealers. Been in Rotary almost 2 years in July.
Cindy Parada, I work with Atlantic Scotia Bank down the street, and I've been with Rotary about 10 years.
Gordon Stanley, I'm trying to be retired, but very busy.
Keep dragging you in.
I'm in an IT business, and I've been in Rotary about 25 years.
Tom Madigan, I live in town, in Wyckoff, in packaging, and I've been in Rotary 20 years.
Wake up, Kevin.
Joe Monahan, financial retail. Been in the club about 3 years at this point, and live in Midland Park. I was taught not to talk with food, but you caught me by surprise. I'm Kevin Hanley. I live in Wyckoff. I'm a lawyer, and I don't know how long I've been in Rotary. I can't remember. I was in Ridgewood Rotary probably from about 1990, and then took a couple of years off, and then when I moved up here, I joined here.
Cindy Pick, director of Lifeway Counseling Center in town, prospective member.
I'm Mary Orr, retired school principal in Wyckoff. I
7 years.
for 46 years. I go back to the days when this is the last club on my right, Gordon, to let women in New Jersey. So I go back to when I was alone with the guys, and I was president twice, and the first time was a hoot, I have to say. I had Steve Oswell. I had a lot of fun. It's a great.
I'm Amelia. I do hair. So
She does my hair.
And if you need a deal,
If you like paint.
Okay.
I'm living in Rotary.
I don't know, I cannot remember. Over 10 years. Yes, I know past president. Yeah.
Elizabeth Poole, I've been in Mifflin Park for about 15 months. I'm a Realtor, and I've been in this club for 3.
Oh, my God, already?
That's
Oh,
nice.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, time flies.
My name is Martha Cherubin. I'm a social worker and also I own a home care and staffing agency. And I've been in Rotary, I guess
Right after you?
Yeah, right after her. And I live in Midland Park.
Great.
Where do you live?
I live in Union County. So,
And who you?
so my name is Josh Cohen. I am the Regional Director for the Anti-Defamation League's New Jersey office. Show of hands, how many people know who the Anti-Defamation League or the ADL is? Okay. Oh, well, there you go. So then I'll just have a seat and pass them up. So you'll notice up on the screen it says imagine a world without hate. Well, it doesn't say hate, but imagine a world without hate. So at the end of my presentation, I'm going to show you a video that we did for our 100th anniversary 2 years ago. That's right. I work for an organization that in November of last year celebrated its 102nd birthday. So we are a 102-year-old organization that was originally located in Chicago, now headquartered in New York with 28 offices around the country. So I'm the regional director for the New Jersey office, which covers North and Central New Jersey, Southern New Jersey, covered by the Philadelphia office. So anywhere you go in the United States, there's an ADL office. And since our founding in 1913, the mission of the ADL has been the same. It's a two-part mission. It's a Jewish organization. We were founded to stop the defamation of the Jewish people and also to secure fair and just treatment for all. And for 102 years, that mission has not changed. So what does that mean? Stop the defamation of the Jewish people, fight anti-Semitism, combat hate against the Jewish people, but at the same time, seeking fair and just treatment for all. So as 102 years later, we are one of the country's largest human relations and civil rights organizations, still doing the same work that we did in 1913. Well, at least the mission is still the same. The work has evolved and changed over time. So what does that mean today here in New Jersey? We do 3 things. This is a good way to sum it up. We protect, we investigate, and we educate. P-I-E, so 3 parts of the pie. So protection, we're a defense organization. Oftentimes, people are the victims, or at least they feel that they are the victims of anti-Semitism, racism, bigotry, prejudice, hate, and we're the first people that they call. Jewish, not Jewish, black, white, Asian American, Chinese American, Muslim American, Jewish, Catholic, Christian. People call us because they know that we've been here for 102 years and that we've been fighting for individuals who feel that they don't have a voice in society when they're the victims of hate. And we try and provide a meaningful intervention for them when they do call us. And that can mean anything. It could be advocating for them if it's a workplace discrimination complaint, connecting them with law enforcement if they're the victim of a hate-related incident, you name it. If we're able to provide that meaningful intervention, we do it. We also, as far as protection goes, as an organization that's a target of hate as well, we offer our expertise in protection to religious organizations around the country. So oftentimes I do presentations in conjunction with law enforcement on religious institutional security. And this started with Jewish institutions and has since expanded. So very often, also oftentimes I'm called to go to synagogues or Jewish day schools or religious organizations to talk about their security needs and ways that they can vigilantly protect themselves. And these are sometimes for religious institutions not high on the priority list, and it's something that we want to be on the priority list. We've since expanded that work over time. You may remember last year in South Carolina, an alleged white supremacist by the name of Dylan Roof walked into a church in South Carolina, a Baptist church, and murdered a number of African-American parishioners. It was based on his racist ideology. We immediately took all of our resources that we use within the Jewish community and sent them out and offered our expertise and training to other religious organizations that, you know, these are issues that don't just affect the Jewish community, they affect the entire community. And, you know, we've had, as part of our intergroup relations work, we've done a number of different training and seminars, et cetera, for those people, for those individuals and those communities. Investigate. We, since our founding, track and monitor hate and extremist groups. It's something that we've been known for. Everything from the far left to the far right, homegrown, radicalized individuals who want to commit acts of terrorism, here in the United States, to white supremacists, skinheads, neo-Nazis, anti-government groups like sovereign citizens or militias. We have an entire department in our New York City office, as well as staff scattered throughout the country, who all they do all day is monitor hate and extremist groups, individuals, groups, activity. We publish a lot of this information on our website about individuals and groups, put them in some very flashy reports. We do presentations on them to law enforcement. We are the largest non-governmental organization that trains law enforcement on hate crimes, and hate groups, and extremist groups in the United States. Yes?
How much human capital do you have as an organization?
As far as staff? So a little over 300 professional staff people.
It seems with what you're accomplishing, you need staff.
We always need staff. I mean, it's individuals versus resources that are there. Sure. So training law enforcement on a variety of different topics. Taking yes.
The staff that you have, the one who are investigating, are they trained by the police or anything?
So staff has very interesting backgrounds. So, an ADL staff person, there's no typical ADL staff person. We have people who work for us who are lawyers, former teachers, former educators, people who have advanced degrees in the various divisions that they're in. So, our education staff, for example, and our educators, most of them have education backgrounds. People in our Center on Extremism that monitor hate and extremist groups and work with law enforcement, various backgrounds, everything from international affairs to law enforcement backgrounds to education backgrounds to people who took a passion and a hobby and turned it into a professional career. So there is no real tip. I mean, my background before I started working with the ADL was I was a lobbyist. I worked in health and human service lobbying on behalf of the nonprofit industry, and actually left my job as a child advocacy organization to go work for the ADL, based on a personal experience that I had while living in Philadelphia.
Are you located in all 50 states?
So we're not located in all 50 states. I mean, we only have 28 regional offices, but certain offices have, they cover multiple states. So Philadelphia, for example, covers eastern Pennsylvania, Delaware, and southern New Jersey. Our office in Chicago covers Illinois, Minnesota, sort of the Great Lakes area. I mean, there are 3 offices in California, 3 in Texas. We have an office in Omaha. The Cleveland office covers Ohio, western Pennsylvania, Kentucky. So everywhere that you are in the country, there is an ADL office. It may not be down the street or located near, but they are there as a resource to provide assistance. If, what I said before about hate-related incidents, working with law enforcement, working on investigations. And I should also say, in addition to the training that we do for law enforcement, in addition to the reports, we do training. We're the largest non-governmental organization that trains law enforcement. That means a variety of different things. On a national level, we train senior level law enforcement executives in 3 particular areas. One is through our advanced training seminar. That is a program where high-ranking law enforcement officials apply to a 3-day counterterrorism training program that we hold every year in Washington, D.C. Law enforcement apply for this program. You meet the criteria, we accept you. We provide this at no cost to law enforcement. Bring you down to Washington, train you for 3.5 days on trends in counterterrorism and how to protect your communities. We do it for 30 law enforcement executives twice a year, so 60 participants. The last program that we did was right after Thanksgiving, early December. 30 participants, over 275 applicants. So it's not uncommon that someone applies 3 or 4 times and then is finally accepted, not because they're not worthy of coming to the training, it's just, it's a space limitation issue. New Jersey's always been represented well at that. The police chief from Newark, New Jersey, attended that training, and we just started recruiting for this upcoming ATS session, and we're looking to get someone from either the state police or the New Jersey Office of Homeland Security and preparedness to attend. And, part of my job is to develop those relationships with law enforcement, because in addition to those national trainings like our advanced training seminar, we take senior law enforcement executives to Israel and have them train with their Israeli counterparts on anti-terrorism training, as well as a program that we do with a lot of federal law enforcement agencies that we're looking to replicate around the country, called Law Enforcement in Society, where we take law enforcement, where they take law enforcement at the beginning of their career, and we bring them to the Holocaust Museum. Why would we bring law enforcement training to the Holocaust Museum?
See real hate.
See real hate, right? So, has anybody been to the Holocaust Museum? So when you get out of the elevator on the 3rd floor, you start at the 3rd floor and you work your way down, one of the first pictures that you see in the Holocaust Museum is a picture of an SS officer and a German police officer standing side by side with a German Shepherd muzzle. And the police chief of Washington, D.C. many years ago was Charles Ramsey. He then went on to Philadelphia to be the police chief, and now he's a consultant to the Chicago Police Department, who certainly has their work cut out for them these days. And Charles Ramsey saw this picture and immediately reminded him of one, growing up as an African-American in Chicago, and images that he saw on television of civil rights movement in the South, and images that he saw on television. But it also reminded him of what happens when law enforcement crosses the line, stops defending the rights of individual citizens, and starts enforcing the rule of law of Hitler. And immediately picked up the phone and called the ADL office in Washington, D.C. and said, I think there's a program here. I think there's something that we can do for law enforcement cadets. And that program has since grown to Law Enforcement in Society, where we bring law enforcement trainees or cadets to the Holocaust Museum. We give them a docent-led tour of the museum in the morning before the museum actually even opens. The only people that get docent-led tours at the museum are law enforcement, and I guess if you have your name on the wall at the museum, you get it. There are no typical tours at the United States Holocaust Museum. After that, they go into a classroom and they process what they've learned. And I should say that the docents that take them to the museum have been trained to give them a tour that tries to look at the Holocaust through the eyes of law enforcement, and what was the role of law enforcement, how that relationship between law enforcement and society broke up, and how law enforcement was complicit in genocide. So then they go and they process that day, and then we do an exercise where we actually ask cadets, and it's probably the first time they've been asked since they've been trained, since they started their training, why did you want to become a law enforcement officer? Why did you want to become a police officer? What are the stereotypes of law enforcement? And then how do you want to be viewed in the community? And it's a really powerful exercise. So on the bus, so we used to do this with Philadelphia cadets, and I should say that I've been with ADL for 6 years. 1 year as the regional director for New Jersey, 5 years as the associate regional director in the Philadelphia office. When we used to take Philadelphia police cadets down to Washington, D.C., in the morning, the bus ride at 5 o'clock in the morning, you have a lot of angry police cadets. I have to get up, I'm getting up the regular time, but this is a day away from the range, this is a day away from training, I have a really important job that I need to be trained for in the city of Philadelphia. Why are you bringing me down to the Holocaust Museum? The ride home was this was the most amazing experience I've had. It reinforced why I wanted to become a law enforcement officer and help remind me. And then it's through follow-up trainings that we do with law enforcement throughout their career that reinforces their role. So whether we do these national trainings that I just mentioned, or local customized trainings here in the region. So often I am called, and I bring my national colleagues in to do trainings for law enforcement based on their needs. So there may be a police department here in New Jersey that says, we're having some community relations issues. We feel that we're not properly investigating hate crimes. Is there a training that you can do for our law enforcement on the best cases and practices for investigating hate crimes and that interaction with an individual who's potentially a victim of a hate crime? Because that interaction, if it's not done well and not documented properly, could sour their entire relationship with law enforcement for the rest of their life. So should something like that happen again, they may not be inclined to pick up the phone and call the police if something like that happens. We do trainings on individuals and groups. So, North Jersey may be seeing like an influx of KKK flying. This is something that's happened throughout New Jersey that we've seen. So oftentimes we're called to do trainings on hate groups like, the KKK, or white supremacists, or do training for intelligence officers at various police departments on trends for homegrown radicalized individuals who are looking to commit acts of terrorism here in the state of New Jersey. And we provide those briefings to everything from your everyday patrol person on the city level to state police to all the way to the federal government, working with the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, Homeland Security, etc. Yes?
Don't mean to keep
No,
interrupting.
no, it's fine.
I have a million questions.
That's fine.
You know, Rotary started in Chicago too, a few years before you guys. It's now one of the world's largest organizations. What are you doing outside of the U.S. borders, if anything? I know you said you take people from the U.S. Israeli police. But for instance, while the Holocaust was underway in Germany in the late 30s, early 40s, what were you as an organization trying to do at that point in time? Did you have any ability to do anything beyond the U.S. border? And for instance, what is going on right now in Syria with the elimination of the Christians there? Is there something that your organization can do?
Sure. So it's interesting. So while the mission of the organization has not changed over 100 years, certainly our work and our focus has. So when we were first started, when we were founded in 1913, if you think about America in 1913, rampant anti-Semitism. Caricatures of Jews in the media, books by Henry Ford, radio addresses by Father Coughlin. These are the place status quo Jews in the United States was in a terrible position. Quota systems in colleges, individuals changing their last names to do business, being denied access and entry to country clubs, hotels, etc. I have a friend who actually put out a book where he collects postcards, like anti-Semitic postcards, and it's actually you can actually put out a book about this, where you look at the bottom of the postcards where it says selective entry at this hotel, and then in parentheses it says Jews, whatever colloquialism was used for African Americans at the time. So the organization was really founded as an advocacy organization for the Jewish community to speak out against these types of things that were going on in the United States, but at the same time also speaking out for other groups that were being marginalized or treated unfairly in the United States. Then in the 20s and 30s, and I don't want to go too much into our history, Madison Square Garden, the American Nazi Party holds a giant rally, and that's really when we started to get into monitoring, American Nazis and Nazi groups. Founding the State of Israel in 1948, we become an organization that's a local supporter of Israel and the Jewish state, and we also expand our international affairs work. So today, what are we doing internationally? We are still, we are a voice for the Jewish community globally. We monitor anti-Semitism all over the world. Last in how do we do this? So we do a lot of polling data to measure anti-Semitic attitudes and anti-Semitic sentiment. We work with organizations that are already on the ground, who are sort of the ADL equivalent in Europe, or the Middle East, or Asia, or South America, working with them, providing them with resources, but also speaking out when there are incidents that happen not only to the Jewish community, but to other communities. So when violence against Christians in Syria happened, ADL is speaking out against the regime in Syria, working with NGOs and other government partners that are on the ground to try and make the situation better in our capacity as a domestic, civil rights organization. So that's some of the work that we do. And I should say that, it's busy work these days. Threats of terrorism in Europe and the Middle East, rising anti-Semitism. We did a poll in 2014. We did something called the Global 100. You can go to our website. There's a link to this incredible poll that we did. We measured anti-Semitic attitudes in 101 countries around the world. And what we found is that, and we didn't say, this country's anti-Semitic or that country. We have a poll and questions that we developed with the University of California like 30 or 40 years ago that we used to use in the United States to measure anti-Semitic attitudes. And it's in addition to demographic information like levels of education, your age, income level. We asked 11 questions, 11 true-false questions that are common anti-Semitic stereotypes or tropes. And if the answer is 6 out of the 11 in the affirmative, we're not calling you an anti-Semite. We will say that you hold some anti-Semitic attitudes because you're answering the affirmative to, all Jews are rich, Jews hold disproportionate power in government, the standard anti-Semitic. What we found through our global polling is that, over 1 billion people in this world, almost a fourth of the world hold anti-Semitic attitudes, answered in the affirmative to these questions. And what we did was we broke it down by country. So, does anybody know what country had the highest anti-Semitic index score in Europe?
France.
In Europe. France?
France.
Okay. Anybody else?
England?
Germany.
Spain.
Spain. It's actually Greece. Greece. So what's going on in Greece right now?
All the Syrian refugees are going over there.
So even before that?
Before that.
Their crash, the economy.
Yeah.
Economy crashed, and rise of right-wing political parties like Golden Dawn. The Golden Dawn is a political entity in Greece that has a nativist and extremist agenda, blaming the economic crisis on everyone, refugees, Jews. They have a symbol. Their party symbol is oddly similar to the swastika. They wear red armbands. There are a few people that are in their parliament. It's scary stuff. So Greece, which country had the lowest score
Germany.
in the world?
Is it Germany?
Nope.
Egypt.
Laos. Laos had the lowest score. High score in the world, I think, was either West Bank or West Bank, Palestine. It's interesting. United States, consistently low, around like 12-13%. Canada around the same number. What's interesting is with France is that we did the poll in 2014, and then we did a follow-up in 2015 for certain select countries, and we actually found that anti-Semitic attitudes dropped significantly in France after the attack on Charlie Hebdo, the newspaper, as well as the incident at the kosher supermarket a day later. And then some of my colleagues said they found this kind of interesting, so they followed up, and then the numbers are still pretty low. So what's interesting about Europe now, countries like France and Germany, is that there are terrible things that have happened. The community feels like they're under siege. But you have political leaders who are being very vocal about how this is not appropriate. How you had the president of France, not the prime minister, Valls, said, in a question about Jewish people immigrating to Israel or leaving France, he said, France without our Jewish people wouldn't be France anymore. Like, it can't be, and seeing people like Angela Merkel, who's the Chancellor of Germany, and François Hollande, and other European leaders, actually addressing this head on it speaks volumes to where we've come, both globally and nationally. The third piece of our agenda, or that pie, is education. We feel very strongly that one of the best ways to stop hate is to stop it at its roots, and that's through education. You're going to fight hate speech with good speech. So we are an organization that speaks out on a lot of different things. We see something, we're going to speak out against it. But we're not just going to speak out against it, we're going to do something about it. And that's really through our education work. It's something I'm really proud of. And we have a number of different programs that we do around the country and here in New Jersey. Some of them are anti-bullying and anti-bias initiatives. We have a program called our World of Difference Institute. We're a leader in anti-bias training for elementary, middle, high school students and faculty. We even do our World of Difference anti-bias training for businesses, colleges, and even law enforcement. We do a number of, so that's everything from peer leadership training to anti-cyberbullying and bullying programs in schools. Everything from full-day workshops for teachers and administrators to half-day workshops for peer leaders in schools. The idea being that you train leaders in the school and they bring those lessons back to the school and be ambassadors to fight harassment, intimidation, and bullying in schools. Another program that we do that is just amazing is called No Place for Hate. No Place for Hate is a national program that we do to reduce harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And schools contact ADL and say, we want to be in No Place for Hate school. We are going to sign a resolution of respect. We are going to commit to reducing harassment, intimidation, and bullying in our schools. We're gonna put together a coalition of teachers, of parents, of students, of administrators, so that way there's buy-in from all partners in the school. And we're gonna do 3 projects throughout the year aimed at reducing bullying in our schools. And we work hand in hand with the school to approve the projects. We give them a list of potential projects that they could do. Everything from simple stuff like mix it up day at lunch. Never knew about this until ADL, but schools do this through our No Place for Hope program. You know, if you ever go to a high school or a middle school cafeteria, you know, you sit with who you know, and you stick to your own. It's a lot of faction. So they have days throughout the school year where you don't sit with your friends. You sit with someone you've never talked to, you've never met, and it creates a dialogue, and it creates a conversation, it creates a new relationship. You know, I was at my son's preschool class, and they wanted me to talk about what I did for a living. I read them a Dr. Seuss story about this character who was wandering through the woods, and he saw a pair of like green pants walking around in the woods, and he was afraid of them. And the reason why he was afraid of them is because he didn't know them. He never got to know them. And now instead of running away, they stop and they say hello. And you know, 4-year-olds, they love that story. They thought it was hysterical, but it's a really good lesson. It's something like mix it up day and lunch. So everything to bringing guest speakers, you know, schools do that, Holocaust survivors, civil rights leaders, etc. You name it. So this was a program that when I came to the ADL office, wasn't being treated as well as it could be. There was like 3 or 4 No Place for Hate schools, so my first year I expanded to 7 or 8. This year we have 15 schools in New Jersey who have applied to be No Place for Hate schools. So last year our No Place for Hate program was touching the lives of over 10,000 kids. This year over 25,000 kids, and that's a program that we hope to just continually expand and grow while maintaining a high level of quality for these types of programs.
Josh, I just need to
Sure.
interrupt you for a second. We've gone through our time.
Oh, I apologize.
But what I want to suggest is let's pull maybe a 50-50 ticket, and if anybody wants to stay here the rest of Josh's presentation, by all means, we can do that.
Sure.
But some people may have to leave to get to work.
Yeah, no problem.
Too late to buy in.
No.
I will just say that, you know, on a lot of our materials it says imagine a world without hate, and you know, at ADL we try and imagine a world without hate, but we see a lot of things in society that make it hard for us sometimes to imagine that world without hate. At the ADL, I'm committed to not just imagining a world without hate, but also building a world without hate, and that's how we, and through some of the things that I've talked about, that's how we try and build that world without hate. And it's a wonderful organization. If you ever want to learn more, go to our website. I have my business card, give me a call. There's always opportunities to get involved with the organization in a variety of different ways. I left some basic materials on your table about our office, also about our corporate sponsorship program. That's something that's interesting.
How are you guys funded?
Private donations, foundations, individuals, etc.
It's amazing, excuse me, what you do with limited, the number of people, your resources. But it seems to me, except for you, spreading out No Place for Hate and doing a fabulous job to increase that in the schools in New Jersey, it was not the individuals in the ADL trying to send out these templates. The places that probably need it the most, they need those police officers to go in and have, the training and go through from, aren't gonna be the ones asking for it.
Right.
So how do you, expand your reach?
So that's a great question. So very early in the morning, you read the news, you read the papers. I start off my day very early reading social media on Twitter, on Facebook, newspapers, finding out what's going on in the community. And when I see something that there's a lot of things that just sort of jump out at you. You hear about bullying incidents in schools. We proactively reach out to schools. So if I see, in Fairlawn, like a month or 2 ago, there was allegations of bullying at the high school based on something that was put on social media. We immediately reached out to the superintendent, and I had a great conversation with the superintendent to get some clarification on the incident and to figure out is there a role for our organization and offer it to that particular school. Same thing with law enforcement. If I see that there are trends in the community and we don't have a relationship, I'm going to be building a relationship with that law enforcement entity and letting them know that we're here as a resource, and should they want our help, we're here to offer it. And I do that through things that I read in the paper to, hate crime data. Every year the FBI puts out hate crime statistics. So this year they released 2014, so 2014, yeah, they're always a year behind. So I look at, you know, where are the significant spikes in hate crimes in particular areas? What communities are being affected? What cities aren't reporting? You know, there are certain cities in New Jersey, major cities with over 100,000 people, that either put 0 hate crimes or did not report. I'm not buying it. So that's an ongoing conversation and dialogue, and that's a conversation I have with a law enforcement entity like them, but also with, say, U.S. Attorney's Office or the FBI. How do we ensure that our law enforcement officers are properly investigating and then documenting these particular crimes? So that's, you know, a variety of ways that